Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Welcome back to Crisco's Corner. This is a short excerpt from an interview with Tucker Carlson, Tucker on X, formerly Twitter, with Javier, I believe his name is pronounced Milei. He's going to be the new president of Argentina. Now, you can find a lot of clips on this website, and this guy pulls no punches. Absolutely pulls no punches. He hates the socialist, communist, progressive side. They have the same diversity nonsense and equity and all that. It's been 40-odd years that the socialists have been in power, and he beat them. So he's very opinionated, very much like Trump. He doesn't mince words. Let's hear. I call it a warning for America. Let's listen.
Out of stone and plaster, but the newer socialist buildings are all concrete. What is that?
Porque tiene que ver con los valores de la izquierda. Digamos, los valores subyacentes en las ideas de la izquierda es la envidia, el odio, el resentimiento.
Envy, hatred, resentment, unequal treatment under the law. Does this sound familiar? It's the famous Soviet trick, the oppressors and the oppressed. That is their mantra, and it is here in the United States with Black Lives Matter and other things. We'll say Asian Indians at one time were so-called minority and a protected class. Since they're doing so well in the United States, they now get the anger and the ire of the progressive leftists. It's just the way it is. Same goes with Asians, especially Chinese. They do very well in this country. Well, they used to be screaming and hollering for equality and racism, but all of a sudden now, once you start doing well in the United States, they move out of the oppressor-oppressed class, which they have to have in order to make a certain percent of the population resentful, hateful, and envious. And look at the unequal treatment under the law. We can go through the list from the rioters in 2020, Antifa protests, destruction of buildings, burning down of buildings, destruction of businesses. Very seldom, if ever, they go to jail. People with major felonies getting out on $500 bail. Meanwhile, if you're a conservative, you're January 6th, you're in jail for over 2 years now on no trial. You're never going to get out until you go to trial. Bail is $1 million probably for each one. They can't cover that. So the unequal treatment in the law, it's very familiar. And he's warning us, I think, this is coming permanently.
El trato desigual frente a la ley y la violencia. Entonces, todo ese altruismo socialista termina generando una contaminación de los incentivos que generan pobreza. Entonces, claro, digamos, cuando uno es pobre, digamos, la edificación que puede hacer frente por esa es claramente propia de alguien pobre. Y porque esto es interesante, el socialismo es siempre y en todo lugar un fenómeno violento.
It's a violent, murderous, and impoverishing phenomenon, socialism. The progressive left here in the United States. Let's not forget that the understanding is the three ladies that founded Black Lives Matter make no bones about the fact, of course they don't anymore because they had to raise money, but originally they made no bones about the fact that they were communists and socialists. And look at the universities, the professors come right out and say it right out. So they're not pulling any punches. Let's listen on.
Asesino y empobrecedor. Esa es la característica del socialismo.
Socialism has become ascendant, really, in the United States, as you may have noticed, with the attendant symptoms you described. Massive public debt levels, increasing poverty, disorder, crime, filth, and ugliness. Argentina is at the end stage of that. Argentina is now a poor country because of those policies. What advice would you give to Americans having lived it?
Que nunca abracen las ideas del socialismo, que nunca se dejen seducir por el canto de las sirenas de la justicia.
Don't be seduced by the siren song of social justice. Think of all those millions of people that gave all those tens of millions and hundreds of millions to Black Lives Matter. Now we found out where a lot of that money went. It certainly didn't go to neighborhoods that needed it from the riots from George Floyd. You see on the Daily Wire, they didn't get a dime. In fact, the neighborhoods are worse than they were after the riots. What do the big shots in BLM get? Multiple mansions. Some in Canada, many in the U.S. Their friends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, all got huge amounts of money. I believe the one boyfriend of one of the founders of BLM got $900,000 for security, but that gentleman has never been in the security business. It's just handing out money to the people they like. Don't be seduced. But the people that gave the money thought, hey, how can you be against an organization that's trying to go against racism? Well, I mean, if you're a young person, especially brainwashed in high school and college, you're going to give money to make yourself feel better that you at least contributed and try to change things when the whole thing's a scam. The whole thing is a scam. Don't be seduced by social justice. And that includes the trans issue as well, which is going into schools and just destroying children's lives. And we can't go into too much detail because this website won't allow it. But you see enough of the news to know.
Justicia social, que no se dejen atrapar por esa frase nefasta que donde hay una anciana hace un derecho.
Don't get caught up in when there's a need, there's a right. Everybody has a right to this, has a right to that. What I find interesting is the rights in the Constitution don't cost anybody any money. You have a right to eat, or you have to eat in order to live and survive, but it is not a right under government. It's not. Never has been. Neither is the abortion issue, birth control. We can go through the list. The Second Amendment is your right to bear arms. So that means the government's going to buy you weapons? No, it doesn't work that way. And they know it is too. Everybody by their need, they have a right. And that's the fallacy and the huge flaw in the progressive left socialist mindset.
Pero que eso no se hace solo. Para eso hay que estar preparado y hay que dar la batalla cultural día a día. Y que hay que tener cuidado porque ellos no tienen problema en meterse adentro del Estado y aplicar las técnicas de Gramsci, seduciendo a artistas, seduciendo, la cultura, seduciendo a los medios de comunicación.
Now look what's going on at Disney and many other of the cultural icons. They have huge sway and influence. They're bombing. But they caused so much damage before this. And they're not even talented anymore. They're going over the retreads of former Disney intellectual property and twisting it and turning it. I mean, look at Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What a joke. And the lead girl that's played Snow White in that, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous what they've done. And they've infiltrated every part of the bureaucracy in the federal, state governments. I live in upstate New York, so this state's pretty much down the toilet. They have control over anything. They're like a slow-growing cancer. And it's going to be tough to get them out, but it has to be done.
O metiéndose en los contenidos de la educación. Hay que tener mucho cuidado, hay que cortarles el financiamiento y hay que hacerlos competir a la par.
And force them into a fair fight. Look what's happening in the U.S. military, the most powerful military in the world. Now there's all kinds of pronoun requirements and diversity training and equity training and trans this. It's the military. But I find it interesting now that the war is going on in Ukraine and now in Israel, that the new military commercials for the U.S. Army, U.S. Marines and such don't show that they recruit the girl with two moms and that kind of nonsense. They're old school military commercials because their recruitment is way down, way down.
Y al mismo tiempo hay que concientizar a los empresarios de que es necesario que más allá, Milton Freeman decía que la función social del empresario era ganar dinero. Bueno, con eso solo no alcanza. Parte de la inversión tiene que ser invertir en los defensores de las...
He's absolutely right. And I'm a huge fan of Milton Freeman. You'll see his old videos. He's passed away now. But there's tons of Milton Freeman videos on this website. If you punch in his name, you'll get hundreds of videos. Milton Freeman is, to my opinion, one of the greatest economists that ever lived in my lifetime. What he's saying is these large business interests, that the only thing business is there for to make money, and that's true. You have to make money in order to keep the business open and keep hiring people. But investing in those who defend the ideas of freedom, making a lot of money and hiring a lot of people are all great things. But it's not enough. He's absolutely right. And these same companies that do well need to invest in ideals of freedom. And I'm not talking about progressive leftists, what their idea of freedom is. I'm talking about real freedom. The organizations that are pushing for free speech, gun rights, and the list goes on and on and on. They're not getting the help from the business sector. What happens is the progressive leftists threaten businesses that if they don't give to their cause, they'll be blackballed. Look what happened with Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's and the girl in Orlando Lakes. It's ridiculous what these big corporations have kowtowed to the threats. These big businesses have to defend the ideas of freedom. And that means giving money and or support to people and organizations that want to keep this country free as per the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Let's listen on.
De la libertad para que los socialistas no puedan avanzar, porque si no lo hacen, ellos se van a meter en el Estado y desde el Estado van a imponer una agenda que de largo plazo va a...
So you get into the state and the bureaucracy and a long-term agenda that will destroy everything it touches. Look at the nameless, unelected, faceless individuals that really run this country, and the bureaucrats and all the agencies, from agriculture through housing and urban development. I mean, go right down the line. Education's another one. They have been infiltrated, and the cancer is spreading. Trump calls it the swamp. Some people call it the deep state and the intelligence services. That has been overtaken. And you don't have to have a majority in an agency to change their direction. Just a very loud minority. And they'll kowtow to the threats, because leftists and progressives are relentless. Relentless. Many of them have all day to do nothing. Let's listen on.
Terminar destruyendo todo lo que toca. Entonces, ahí, digamos, es necesario un fuerte compromiso de todos los creadores de riqueza para luchar contra el socialismo, contra el estatismo, y entender que si eso no se hace, los socialistas siempre van a seguir intentando. Porque, ¿cuál es el punto? Como ellos intentan vivir de los demás sin trabajar, ellos son incansables.
They're tireless in their pursuit. They're living off other people. I'm not talking about disabled people or any other programs that we have, and almost all the Western Europe does. I'm not talking about that at all. They live off of other people, and they're tireless in their pursuit. They are relentless, 24/7, and that's the one thing conservative people aren't. We had a local election here. I used to be a city councilman back in the early 2000s. and we had an election here. There's 7 people on the city council that I used to be on years ago. It was 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats, and one of the Democrats was an old school moderate. It looks like there's an excellent chance that all 7 seats are going to be Democrats. Why? Because the Democrats are relentless, knocking on doors, what they call GOTV, getting out to vote, helping candidates. They were relentless, and they won. And that's something that's maybe just part of the flaw in conservative people, is they don't go out and do those things. Well, you know, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, and this is what happens. And that's what he's talking about in an indirect way. Let's listen on.
En buscar esto. Porque su leitmotiv en la vida es vivir de los otros. Entonces ellos no ceden nunca en este mecanismo de apropiación de la riqueza y del dinero.
Of others' wealth, money, or income. Remember the phrase, tax the rich, tax the rich? Well, my understanding from doing research, that 52%, I believe, of the bottom half of the wage earners in the United States, people that work full time, pay 0 net federal taxes. I'll say that again. The lower 52% of people that work pay 0 net federal taxes. You combine all the money that was taken out of their paychecks, and then all the money that comes back to them in refunds, child care credit, the list is endless. They end up paying 0, and in many cases get more than they pay in. So that means the upper 40-odd%, 46, 48% are paying all the taxes. So tax the rich is a misnomer and a lie. They want other people's wealth, money, or income. Is absolutely right.
O de la generación de ingresos de otro. Entonces, esa batalla tiene que ser dada de manera permanente. No se puede descansar, porque cuando uno descansa,
because when we rest, socialism creeps in. When we think we've won, when conservative people and people that love this country and the Constitution think they've won, they let their foot off the gas pedal. And that's when this creeps in. It's like cancer. It slowly eats away. And eventually, as we all know, we've all lost loved ones or had people we knew, cancer eventually kills the host. So there you have it. The new president, Javier Milei, I believe it's pronounced, is going to be the new president of Argentina, who's been a progressive leftist socialist country for over 40 years. One of the richest countries in South America is now one of the poorest, right along with Venezuela. Venezuela had tremendous wealth and prosperity until the socialists, the progressives, and the leftists came in. And they always burn it right down to the ground. He's absolutely right. Now, this guy, if you'll punch in his name on this website, you'll see a lot of videos where he's very calm in this interview. He says the leftists are SHIT. And what do you call them that for? He says, because they are. This guy holds back nothing. And the part that makes him crazier than anything, I think, the leftists, and they know he's right. But he got over 55% of the vote. He's going to be the new Argentinian president. I believe this interview, at least as part of it, is a warning for America and a warning for Western Europe, what everybody refers to as the West. Look at Canada. Look at the crap that's going on there. Do you know there's over 3,300 people in England that have said things online or misused the pronoun that are in jail? They're actually in jail because they refuse to use a certain pronoun. That's insane. And that's what's coming here with the climate crisis. Remember, I'm old enough to remember I was 67 this month. I remember when it used to be called global warming. But now it's climate change because what was happening, The warming wasn't happening fast enough, if at all. So they had to change the name of it. They had to adjust their tactic. All this is about is power and control and taking money that doesn't belong to them and giving it to themselves and people that support them. It's dangerous and it's wrong. So, President Milei, congratulations. Trump already called him and congratulated him. My understanding is President Trump is going to fly down to Argentina and have a meeting with the new upcoming Argentinian president. That ought to be great. But there it is, folks. A warning from a person that has nothing to do with the U.S. What's coming? And it's coming quickly. We cannot sit on our butts any longer. And when we do win, eventually conservative people do, we can't take our foot off the gas because, like he said, these people are relentless. So I thought you'd enjoy that short clip from Tucker on X with the interview with the new Argentinian president. What do you think? I like this guy a lot. He tells it like it is. It's one of my favorite TV shows is House MD. Nobody cares what your personality is, and nobody cares if you're offended. All they care about is results. Until the next time, goodbye and good luck.